Everybody out there in the world. Just kidding, nobody is watching this. Today, I just felt like going live and talking about whatever comes to mind. And primarily, that would be, I don't know what that is. Primarily, it would be just the state of the economy globally and labor markets. Um, I saw a video yesterday about a man who worked in a warehouse. I saw like two or three of these. I've never worked in a warehouse. I have applied to work in a warehouse in my lifetime, but I did not end up going with that job. So, dodged a bullet there. But it's pretty crazy when you think about it. I mean, everybody buys stuff, right? And that stuff gets made in a factory somewhere and shipped by people who are not making a lot of money. So this guy said that he was unloading and loading maybe like 200 packages a day, some of them being several hundred pounds, manually just picking them up. And for this, he got paid around $130. FedEx drivers as well, they'd be expected to make like 200 different stops a day and deliver a bunch of packages. And maybe for all of that, they get around $100, right? It really just got me thinking, when you look at the world, there's the real economy, which is extracting natural resources and processing those resources and manufacturing them into useful products and delivering them to the end consumer, right? So that, in the realist sense, that is the economy, right? And, they tend to be people who have less education. They might be a little bit less intelligent naturally. They might have slightly lower IQs. And they come from disadvantaged backgrounds, I suppose you could say. And those are the sort of people who tend to get pigeonholed in these positions where they don't really have the capacity to bargain for themselves. It's just the way life is, and they get stuck doing that kind of labor. I mean, everybody knows this, right? But there are a lot of things which you don't necessarily think about on a daily basis, right? I don't think that most people think about the plight of the average worker on a daily basis. They think about themselves. They think about what's going on in their lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't know. I'm just in one of those moods where I felt like streaming a bit and talking to the internet at large. And yeah, just keep in mind the reality of economics, which is we are all utilizing this massive labor network of what are ostensibly underpaid people. And that's just how it is. I want to be part of the laptop class. I want to do intellectual labor. I'd like to work as a software developer for the rest of my life, and a manager and business executive and financier, and do all sorts of incredible things. But I think that you have to maintain a sort of reverence for the people that do this sort of work. It's not that you have to respect their intellect. It's not that you have to, you know what I mean? It's just keep it in mind. It feels like the world has lost sight of that, right? Like, we talk about the billionaire, Bezos, Musk, the others. I'm not anti-billionaire. I'm not anti-wealth. Tucker Carlson said the other day that, yeah, when you have a position of authority, traditionally, you have an obligation to society. That's how the world would view it. These days, that's not really like part of the equation. It doesn't, everything is structured to be punitive. justify your worth. Why aren't you rich like them? It's so easy. Any idiot could become rich. That's what the world screams at people these days. It's like, it's your fault that you have to work, that you're not rich enough, that blah, 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 right? And I just want for the world to be a better place, especially for me, because I definitely need some money, folks. Uh, yeah. So on we can divide the world roughly into two segments. There is the group of people who are doing the hard labor of extracting resources, transforming them into end products, and delivering those products. And then we have the people who are consuming those products. You have people who have less laborious jobs, people who work registers, people who work, in any kind of laptop-based job, anything that has to do with documents, anything which is more psychologically forward. Doctors, lawyers, business executives. Anybody know that theme song from Weeds? And they're all made out of sticky tacky, and they all look just the same. Anyways, yes. So we're basically two different groups of people. There's two types of humans. There's the ones that are in a constant work cycle that demands physical labor, and there are those who essentially get to enjoy the consumption of the end result of that labor. And I'm not a Marxist communist. I'm not really a capitalist either. I'm more of a realist. Mercantilism existed long before capitalism. So the concept of markets and maximizing profit and, having free trade, capitalism doesn't really seem to add much to that concept other than by any means necessary, I guess, would be the ad that capitalism brings. I mean, I suppose mercantilism was more state centric. So it was about increasing the net earnings of the state, having a large state economy. So the country itself, the government, whereas capitalism is more for private enterprise. I suppose that's the distinction. But yeah, I mean, we're divided into these two classes, and within the laptop class, within the class of psychological workers, it's actually quite brutal. It's brutal. The industry which I'm in is software development. So recently, I think over the last year or 2 years, we've had 500,000 jobs cut. Oracle just laid off, I think, 13,000 people within the last week. Trump tried to impose the 500,000, or what was it, $100,000 tax for H-1B visas. And I definitely kind of agree that there's been far too many H-1B visas in the United States. It's a system which gets abused, right? You can easily see how people basically sell entry into the United States. Hey, if you take this low pay job where we take a substantial cut of your salary, we can get you entry into the United States, blah, 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 blah. You end up getting what are essentially kind of, mills where they're just churning out people. H-1Bs, they drive down the labor value of Americans broadly in the software development space. On the other hand, I think that many of them, if not most of them, are qualified for what they're doing. They're intelligent people. I don't necessarily have anything against them. But then you also get the flip side where there are US-based corporations where if you get a job as a software developer, probably the majority of the people there will have a thick Indian accent. And that's just kind of jarring. It's like, what country do you actually work in? Um, Indian accents have a very broad range. Some are very easy to understand, and some are much more difficult to understand, right? Um, and there's no problem with somebody having an accent per se, but does it change the environment which you're working in? Does it disrupt communication clarity? Oftentimes, yes. So I can understand the pushback on H-1Bs. However, the 100K visa, 100K H-1B tariff, I think it recently got struck down by a judge. I don't know if that's going to be upheld or not. Yeah, that's just kind of how it is. They've been driving market conditions in the United States for software developers for quite some time. You have to weigh higher pay American citizens versus H-1B visas, which take maybe half the pay or less. So, all that said, we also have AI, of course. AI cannot do software development on its own. And ultimately, it can only kind of pretend to do software development. It's really good at pattern recognition and association, but it's functionally incapable of truly comprehending what is actually like going on, right? If it has data which has previously been trained on, it can reference that data and put out something which is similar, right? So it's really good at following existing structures, but if you need to do something new, if it can't really generally produce that new snippet of code. It lacks context for a lot of stuff, so it's kind of like a literal. You have to be super literal. If you've ever done that creative writing exercise, like when you were in elementary school, they often tell you how to write instructions on how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? And then the instructor will follow the directions literally, right? So if you don't say open the lid, if you don't say use your knife and then like spread it on the bread, like you have to say everything properly. You have to tell them how to open up the bag of bread. That's the kind of thing going on with software development. AI is really good for scaffolding a lot of code, so it can give you a lot of boilerplate. But then it introduces all sorts of bugs that need to be worked out, and you need a human to examine everything in context, and also prompt the AI to build the thing to begin with. So AI does not replace software developers. It augments software developers, but it's always economically beneficial for a company to lay off staff. It's one of the easiest ways to have a positive quarter. If you just let a bunch of employees go, all of a sudden, all of the cash that would be spent on the employees is now going to the company. Ergo, you have higher profits. It doesn't take a genius there. However, ultimately, we have to make society function. We have to give people the currency they require to live. And as I see it, you can either create jobs, right, or create handouts. So, the Republican side, and I as well, the conservative side, I don't believe in really like government assistance in terms of direct, here's your flat check. I think that instead they should heavily subsidize employment, right? So essentially, you'd rather have, instead of just welfare that comes with nothing attached, you subsidize jobs, you subsidize good jobs. Ultimately, government and the banks create the currency to facilitate commerce. They have an infinite supply of their currency. There's an infinity US dollars that the government can issue at whim. So the issue is not from a high enough angle. The issue is not making a profit as a government. You don't need to make a profit in terms of cash. The actual currency unit is largely irrelevant. The thing that's actually relevant is the work done, right? Government issues currency to procure labor, right? So labor is the thing they're after. And what they're really, really after is quality of life of their citizenry, because that's how one evaluates the quality of a country, right? So I don't think that people think in those terms. You know, I don't think that people are entirely unaware of that. If you say it, it's common sense, right? I mean, people are kind of aware of that, but I don't think that they actively think about that. Really challenge yourself there. What is the function of economics for the government? What is it that the government does when they issue currency? How does a government gauge their success as a nation? And you can't look at simple currency values as a metric. They can print as much currency as they want. It's about the labor performed. How useful was the labor? How is the quality of life for the citizenry? How do people view your nation? Right? These are the things which matter. And I think somewhere along the line, people lost sight of that. So, all that said, labor markets are in kind of a ridiculous spot. Everybody online, there is just an endless deluge of information. It's damn near impossible to get real people to interact with your content. Most people who appear in social media feeds are paying for views, right? Most people are not intrinsically as popular as their view count would suggest. Most people are paying for notoriety. Otherwise, they would just be completely drowned out. And I just find it's kind of tragic. It's a little bit tragic. You know, we have the Global Information Network, but actually connecting with people is arguably more difficult than ever, because people are so surrounded, they're so saturated with media. Why click on one video over another? Why engage with this content over another? Why pay attention to this person over that person? And yeah, I just think it's kind of tragic. People want to make a good life for themselves. The markets are largely indifferent. Yeah, I've spoken with somebody who said that they put in several hundred applications as a software developer and have not heard anything back. And I've had those sort of experiences myself. You can be a qualified person, you can go to college, you can do everything right, and ultimately, because of the amount of information on the internet, it just gets drowned out, right? I've seen it personally. Software development positions get hundreds of applications. So you can post a listing for a job, and within a matter of a day or two, you have a couple hundred different applicants. That's just the reality of how things are. And realistically, frankly, probably, you know, majority of the, maybe half or more of those are foreign-born peoples, so it's it is what it is. I don't have anything against any ethnicity intrinsically, but the reality of the market dynamics is that India has a massive population, and they can just flood the United States and dilute the market share for, Americans born in America who identify as American, multi-generation Americans. I'm fairly certain that I have roots which go back to basically the first wave of people coming over. So, back in like the 1700s, I believe, is the first time that my family kind of reached the United States before it was the United States. I don't have exact details, but that's what I've been told. And I think that is probably true. So for somebody like me, I don't mean to be derisive of anybody, but if a population of 1 billion or more people want to enter the same market of a population of like 300 million people, you would expect roughly, 3 to 1, one American, through and through type individual for 3 foreign-born applicants. So it's very strange. And then we have all these laws against discrimination and things of this nature, which I can agree that it's bad to discriminate in hiring and employment, and you should judge people based off of their capabilities. But in practice, what that means is that people are afraid. They feel bullied. America maybe has some of these protections. They have some. They have higher standards for safety for a lot of things. But the reality of that is that, there are many innocent people who essentially didn't really do anything wrong, but got hit with lawsuits anyways. So you see these labor laws, you see these, safety laws in various industries. It's good to have those, but it comes at the price of a civilization which is constantly afraid of lawsuits. People can't just do what they want to do, how they want to do it. And it's like everybody is locked down. They can't, there are certain things which just can't fly legally. Everybody is afraid of being legally culpable for something. On the one hand, there are lots of incidences of negligence where you can say, like, oh, they're at fault. This company is at fault for this or that. But then it gets taken too far. You know how it goes. People are overly cautious of lawsuits in the United States, and that seeps into employment practices. So, yeah, for me as well, I mean, it gets kind of annoying. I've been filling out a lot of paperwork recently for business, and you see these caveats. It's like, are you a diverse certified business? Like, well, no, I'm not. Are you from like a disadvantaged group? Well, I have my own difficulties in life, right? It got a little bit extreme. I'm I'm in favor of civil rights, but at what point are you creating a second category of people, right? It's like you have extra rights. It went from certain people being deprived of rights to certain people having extra rights above the rights of default, right? And I don't like that feeling. It's like if I were, this or that, stay generic. Would there be doors that would have opened for me because they would have just ticked off a diversity checkbox because they would be afraid of legal repercussions? It's like, I don't know. I have not had an easygoing life, right? I've had my fair share of difficulties, and I don't know, man. It's like it's quite jarring. I'm a pretty cogent dude. I'm capable of doing a lot of stuff, but networking is the bane of me. I have not played my cards right in terms of networking. I've always been online, kind of doing my own thing. And what I should have been doing is hanging out with people who are binge drinking, who have connections to wealthy people, right? It's like time in college spent watching YouTube and playing video games would have been better spent getting into the circles of anybody that has connection to corporate management, right? You know how it goes. Nepotism is a very real thing. And in most cases in the United States, it seems like it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. So let's take a look at some YouTube videos then. Let's take a look around, see what's going on. I'm pretty over most of this stuff. I don't want to watch the majority of these things. Yeah, without anybody else here to like bounce ideas off of, without an audience, without anybody to communicate back, it's all just wasted time. All this is basically just wasted time. An AI can parse it and give you a readout in a summary, but other than that, I doubt that anybody would ever really want to interact with this in any real capacity. It's tragic, you know. I I wish that I had more connections like these, and it's my intention to do some more properly edited content with a cohesive narrative, good pacing, not just off the cuff, but really organize thoughts and communicate them in direct videos, which stay on topic the entire time, don't waste time. You know, asking anybody online for more than 3 minutes of their attention these days is a lost cause for the most part, right? Yeah, not much to say, guys. At this point, I think I've kind of said it all. There's so much random stuff that I don't know what to say. The world will make your head spin, man. Millions and millions of people posting online content, which is derivative or just clickbait. They're talking wild nonsense. There's nothing to really glean from a lot of it. These political videos too, it's just like everyone is pretty much the same, you know, like a lot of these guys, they just post misleading clickbait thumbnails. That's all they do. There might be like a minute of story within a 15-minute video, something like this. Like it's just his opinion and blah blah blah. And every video is basically the same. All the topics are basically the same. We're in this kind of environment where everything is just hyper meta. Everything has already been talked about to the point where there's not much left to say. And it's tragic. In life, you know, I know what I want, but how to get there is kind of a difficult question to resolve. You know, I want economic security. I would like to have some land in the United States or maybe elsewhere. Keep some animals, raise a family, get a lot of projects going, get a home gym, exercise a lot, just kind of lay low, take it easy, do a bunch of projects online, maybe take some sort of like business leadership role in some capacity, do software development, games development, Might mess around with politics a little bit in the future. You never know. But for the most part, I just kind of want to chill with an economically stable life. Yeah. Want to network with good people and have good relationships, professional, personal. But it's difficult. Most people are too absorbed with what they got going on in their own life. They just you know how it goes. Who's got time for other people whenever their life is so full of things? So here I am by myself streaming on the internet to no audience on a Thursday afternoon. Still would like to tour China, maybe even live in China for an extended period. Japan would be interesting to travel to as well. But honestly, I'm more interested in China than I am Japan. Um, I'm just tired of the United States, how like all of this criminality stuff, like the shock, the outrage, flips her car and doesn't care. I don't care either. It really dismays me. I like about China is they have like an orderly society. You look at these travel vlogs, and China is not without problems. China has plenty of problems, but you compare them with America's problems, and it looks like a paradise by comparison. Um, you're not going to get the country living with land and all this other sort of stuff in China as a foreigner. That's just not really practical. You'll be living in an apartment if you live in China. But hey, I mean, I don't have to worry about the way things are in the US. You know, if China is watching you, and I heard somebody else say this online too, I forget who it was. China is upfront. They're like, hey man, it is what it is. We're gonna watch you online. We're gonna profile you. We're gonna pay attention to you and what you're doing online, stuff like that. With the United States, they're like, oh no, we're not looking at you. No, we're not looking at you at all. No, oh what? But then they're monitoring everything and they're profiling people. You don't get anything. Yeah, like sure, China saps people's communications and absorbs their data and tracks them and stuff, but the United States does too. And then the United States doesn't really work economically for anybody except for the people in the top like 10-15%, right? uh in China, people are fairly poor in terms of their earnings if you compare it to the United States, right? However, their cost of living is very cheap. Their cost of living is very cheap. So you have to look at the uh, income to expense ratio to really evaluate across countries how well the population is doing economically, right? It's not as simple as what is the international conversion rate for the currencies and who is earning more of those units of currency. You have to ask, what does the area they live in look like? How do they feel about how they live? How much income do they have left over as a percentage of their paycheck when they pay their bills every month? Right? That's the sort of stuff that really gives you a picture of how things are going. And frankly, it's just kind of undebatable that China is pulling ahead in that. And if the yuan strengthens anymore, I mean, it's already up 2 cents. A 2 cent jump on a 13-cent asset is a huge deal. I mean, that is a lot of money. Like, how many yuan are in circulation? 11.50 trillion yuan, right? Uh, 11.5 trillion times 0.02. So that's equivalent to, like, is that right? Yeah. So 100,000, 100 million, $230 billion, right? So from the yuan popping 2 cents, right? If you look at yuan USD, it's 0.15 US dollar, right? It used to be 0.313 US dollar, right? And that is a difference of $230 billion added to their economy, right? Trump's going around talking about how they're getting foreign investments and, oh, it's like $250 of foreign investments. And then it's all bullshit. Like, it's none of it's fucking real. It's much more imaginable that the yuan could go to like 25 cents, 50 cents. I mean, like, where does it stop? They're running away with the game. China, again, not perfect. It's not perfect. But you can look at their society and see what they're doing. You look at American society and they're not doing anything. Like, there is not a single city in the United States which I am interested in going to, right? Like, it's kind of nice. Like, I think it would be nice to sail the Intracoastal Waterway. If I could afford a yacht, I would do that. But that's about hanging out on a yacht. That's getting off at different ports, taking a ride around town. That's about it. Get back on the boat and leave. There is no single destination in the United States that I would like to go to at all, right? Like, it's not, you ask me, about what I would like to do in the future, and there is no single destination in the United States that I would like to go to. But in China, of course, there's plenty of places I'd like to go. And that's the thing that the United States can't fake. When I was 12 years old, I heard about bullet trains for the first time. And I thought that, I saw the proposal for multiple different high-speed rail projects in the United States. And I was quite optimistic that I would be able to leave my rural area and go to a major metropolitan area where there are people who are actually tapped into what's going on with the global economy and with the sort of things that I'm interested in, right? Because around here, there's nobody. There's basically nobody in my graduating class. I think I had a graduating class of like 20 people in high school, right? So at 12 years old, I'm like, okay, cool. The United States is going to build high-speed rail. They say it will be done in like 3 or 4 years. By the time I'm a high school senior, I'll be able to just get on a high-speed rail and go somewhere else. Just for a trip over the weekend or something like that, right? That never happened. The United States still has not made a single high-speed railway. We don't have a high-speed rail network. China has more high-speed rail than pretty much the entire world combined in one country, right? Their domestic manufacturing is more than probably like 50% of the world combined, right? China's just winning. I mean, you can't get around it any two ways, right? They have all sorts of tourist attractions for both domestic and foreign audiences. China has been characterized as a poor place with oppressive factories and, harsh rural poverty and things like this. And, that's been an element historically, but the way that they frame it, my understanding is that they encourage young people to work in factories more, right? So they have this kind of sense of like civic obligation. So if you go work really hard in a factory for 2 or 3 years when you're in your 20s, all of a sudden, you have startup capital and you can kind of access a different tier of employment in a major city, right? So that's the kind of idea. It doesn't work 100% of the time for everybody, but they at least have like a feasible system. And the US dollar in my lifetime has lost like over 50% of its value, right? So it's like, it's lost like over 50 to 60% of its purchasing power. The yuan went up. Okay. So, Chinese people may be poor now, but they've cornered the global market for production of goods. They I mean, it's just incredible how greatly they have won. Like they have won so fully and completely this competition of societies that it's just astounding, right? Like you cannot point to a single thing in the United States which has improved in my lifetime, right? Since 2001, that was pretty much the peak of the empire, right? 2001 was when America jumped the shark. In my youngest years of my life, the United States was the best it ever would be. It's never been on a good course since. We've had, some improvements in certain aspects of things when it comes to infrastructure, like the fast food restaurants look fancy now, right? Walmart looks a little bit spiffier than it used to. But realistically, guys, I mean, China has built mega cities with, thousands of skyscrapers. They've it would be the equivalent of if for the United States to have succeeded on the level that China has in my lifetime, we would have to have built like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 New York cities or Los Angeles or whatever else. And we have not done that. We have not done that at all. Okay. It's not even close. Domestic manufacturing in the United States is a dead-end job that will leave you dying in poverty. Realistically speaking, that's just the truth. Okay. If you earn like $10 an hour as somebody in manufacturing in the United States, $15 an hour, you'd be lucky to get 20, right? You will barely be able to afford to live. Let's do some quick napkin math here. Pull up my calculator app, although you can't see it. So let's say you work 40 hours a week in manufacturing and you make $14 an hour, because that's the sort of wages they actually pay people. That is probably even a little bit too aggressive. Like 14, they try to get you at the 10 level. I mean, really, they try to start people out as low as they can. And they often don't offer 40 hours a week for certain legal reasons. So that would mean that you'd have $2,240 a month. You're probably not going to be able to get away with rent, which is any less than like $850 or $900. And then groceries and gas and car payments and healthcare coverage and all this other stuff. You might have like $900 left over, but then there's also going to be other things you have to spend on, and you're going to be spending all day in a factory. The housing you're going to be living in is not going to be good. There's no room for career growth. Your dollar is definitely not going to go up in value. That's one thing that's definitely not going to happen, right? US dollar will not appreciate. The yuan will. So I don't know, guys. I'm just thinking out loud here. These
on the YouTube Music app, you can bump your fave songs in the background while you.
I fucking hate these things. That China Insider channel. There are a number of these propaganda channels which only say bad things about China. This isn't even the one that I was thinking about. It was whatever one just flashed across the screen a minute ago. Yeah, China Observer. This channel, every single video is negative about China, and it just doesn't seem realistic from what I've seen from actual travel videos. Like, I mean, they've been saying this kind of stuff for years and years and years, and I just don't think it's realistic. The reality is China had a trade surplus of trillions of dollars last year. The United States had a trade deficit of about the same size, probably more. U.S. trade deficit versus Chinese trade surplus for 2025. It's comparing two countries. But yeah, they had a trade surplus of 1.189 trillion total trade deficit in 2025. So it's basically like, if you look at these two compared, there's essentially a $2 trillion difference in our economies. The United States now owes 900 billion more dollars, and China now has 1.1 trillion, nearly 1.2 trillion more dollars, right? So you combine those two numbers, and essentially the gap between China and the United States in 2025 alone increased by $2 trillion. They have $2 trillion more wealth than we do from the year prior. And that trend just doesn't seem like it's going to reverse. The social dynamics of the United States, all of the stuff that made the country work has more or less fallen out, right? Like Gen X, they didn't really have the same sort of, like the greatest generation, the silent generation. They really had quite a strong like work ethic. They were really well informed and intelligent relative to the world in their time. The United States was in a good position as far as like our cultural zeitgeist. The boomers they inherited essentially the apex of the American empire, right? So they got the post-war boom. So they had the easiest economy that the United States has ever had, right? It was actually possible to work a minimum wage job and support a family comfortably in the boomers' early lifetime, right? So, I mean, you could buy a Mustang with your minimum wage job over a year. You could just buy a brand new. The Mustangs used to be like $2,000, right? And now that's just not the case. Things are not the way they were. Technology has increased, but the earning potential and the buying power, the purchasing power of the dollar have decreased incredibly. So, they say weak times or like hard times make strong men, weak times make weak men, or easy times make weak men, something like that. So basically, the boomers, they had the most wealthy economy. They had the apex of the American empire, and they didn't know how to manage it. It's like Trump. Trump, he inherited like $200 million plus. I don't remember. I was reading about it the other day. Precisely how much he inherited. He said he got a small loan of $1 million from his dad, but from what I read, he had a trust fund the day he was born. He was a millionaire by the time he was like 5 or 6 years old. And he inherited like some absurd amount of wealth after the death of his father. So, and then he goes around and says that he's like a self-made man and stuff like this, and he got a small loan of $1 million, and that's it. That's not true. He inherited this massive real estate empire, and he turned the United States into a laughingstock. It's just a complete joke, the things that have been going on. Donald Trump door dashing McDonald's with the grandma. I mean, that was some of the weirdest shit I've ever fucking seen. He's like talking about how no tax on tips is saving Americans and making them all sorts of money, as if not paying like 20% of your DoorDash tip is going to get you out of poverty in any capacity. Yeah. So the United States it's not in a good place. The average citizen does not feel like they have economic leeway, right? The average worker does not feel like the United States is on the upswing. There's no cultural golden moment like China is experiencing. China has a lot of problems. I don't know the full in and out of it, but they say that college educated Chinese citizens can't really get jobs in the way that they would like to. But hey, guess what? That's pretty much the same as the United States. Sometimes you hear people say that Gaokao is very strict and it ruins people's lives, and Gaokao entrance exam for college in China. But I looked up the numbers the other night, and roughly 60%, the numbers are essentially equivalent. 60% of U.S. students end up going to college after high school, and about 60% of Chinese students end up going to college after high school. They talk about the 1 to 2% colleges in China. There are Ivy League schools just like the United States, like Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, right? And those have like a 1 to 2% acceptance rate or lower. But then there's also like thousands of regional colleges in China, and they are so much better quality than the regional colleges in the United States. It's not even funny. It's not even comparable. They're in two entirely different universes. The American collegiate education system is a fucking joke. It's for profit, right? It's for profit to a degree. They don't care about standards. Like I've taken, I have a college degree, and the basic reality is that most of the classes, they have hard requirements for certain classes to graduate, right? So you have to take this class and that class, and a lot of the classes which are required are a complete and total fucking waste of time, right? And they don't challenge people. Like one class I took, it was exclusively open book. Like all of the exams were take home open book. So basically you had the answers just like right there available to you, right? Like people were not even learning it. And they were also collaborative, I believe, was also the other catch. So literally one of the classes I took, which was a general education requirement to graduate with any degree from the university I went to, which was a large public university, by the way. So it's like, a state college. And nobody had to learn anything, really. Like, I think I joined like a group of people in the class and we just emailed each other answers, basically. Like, imagine 6 or 7 people uh, just collaborate to pass the final exam. Yeah, like it's like day school for most people, you know. And I've always wanted like a more advanced learning track, but you just simply don't get anywhere in a 45-minute class, right? Think about what a 45-minute class looks like for education. You go in, you sit down, the first 5 minutes, the teacher isn't ready, you know, the class isn't ready, people are maybe even still showing up, you know, they don't really properly begin. And then maybe you get started after 5 minutes, and then the first 5 minutes they're talking about like, oh, this is coming up and that's coming up, and have you done this yet, and that, and right. So it's like just order of business kind of things. Remember your papers are due, whatever, right? So now you're 10 minutes in, you have 35 minutes left. And then it tends to just be like a lazy lecture. Like, my experience to how I felt was any single lecture that I ever attended in person, I could find a much better written YouTube video, right? There would be, you'd be spending your time better to learn from somebody who has prepared remarks, right, on the internet, that actually like knows what they're talking about, right? Because a lot of college professors are just not, they're not on their stuff. They just kind of wing it from day to day. They're not giving particularly insightful information. They're not, it's not a well rehearsed presentation. It's just kind of off the cuff, similar to what I'm doing right now. So in China, that's not the same way. China, maybe they're a little bit too uh, arduous with their education, 996, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. It's a little bit ridiculous. But in the United States, colleges have been so diluted that they don't carry any meaning. It's all for profit. It's essentially daycare for adults. And then they pass those people off to the corporate state, where the corporate positions that they tend to get are also basically like daycare for adults. Um, so yeah, I mean, a lot of alcoholics in the United States who socialize properly tend to outperform in terms of career progression to people who have like actual cognitive capacity that actually want to perform in their career, because that's what actually gets you hired. That's what gets your salary set. Do you know the hiring manager? Do you know executives in the company? Do you know family of these people? You know, that's what tends to get business done in the United States. China is not without its nepotism, but they are very performance driven, right? It's a society run by engineers as opposed to lawyers. That's the basic fundamental difference between China and the United States. China is run by engineers. That's the majority of the people who comprise their government have engineering backgrounds. Majority of the people who comprise the American government have legal backgrounds. And lawyers are basically just good at arguing about trying to weasel people out of money. So a bunch of tricksters looking to con people. That's who we have leading the United States. China has engineers who came from one of the most competitive educational backgrounds that exists on the planet, and it shows. You can see through all of their infrastructure, everything that's come up, all of the ideas they have, right? Like, they're just, if you watch China travel vlogs, you'll see some of the most incredible stuff you've ever seen. Every little thing that they do, um, like they just have novelty in spades. Like innovate even in small things, right? You just don't see that kind of stuff going on in America. It just does not exist. And if it ever comes to America, it'll probably be licensed by the Chinese to Americans, right? America is just every man for himself. The mentality is get as much income for yourself as possible. That is the natural modality of economic markets, is every man for themselves. But America really takes it to another level. There is basically no cooperation between anybody, even within the government, because it's all about you. It's all about your budget. It's all about you getting rich. They don't cooperate. It's just how it is. There's no sort of sense of civic duty for the collective well-being of the nation. And I think that probably a large amount of that has to do with, we're disparate peoples. The American melting pot thing. Diversity can be an advantage, but it's not inherently an advantage, right? Diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, diversity of outlook, diversity of skills, okay? But diversity for diversity's sake is not inherently good. Sometimes it's better for people to be on the same page, right? If you have too much diversity, then people are just not going to collaborate effectively. So in the United States, people have national pride, or they're loyal to the country or something like this, but they're more loyal to the concept of making a lot of money, right? of them themselves being rich. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, ... for me, right? It pretty much starts and stops there for most people. Most of the MAGA group, the MEGA group, they champion these ideals in a paper-thin way as an attempt to gain social status to advance their own economic agenda. And that's it. These are not like Patrick Hamilton, I believe that's his name. Give me liberty or give me death. That's not the type of people that these people are, right? These are turncoats that say the thing which is popular that they expect to generate the best return for them. Nothing else, right? So people don't have national loyalty. There's no loyalty to the people. In China, they say, this is our China, our China, our China. Everybody's China, right? It's a collective ownership. They call everybody uncle and nephew and niece and stuff like this, even if they have no actual relation, right? Aunt, uncle, nephew, niece. If you didn't know somebody from anybody else, you still call them this because they view everything as one giant family, or they have a collective destiny, right? And it's working for them. The people who are the poorest in China are happy, right? Like, not all of them, okay? To be fair, I don't want to completely whitewash it, but for the most part, like, I've seen videos of people earning like nothing that are growing crops on a small tract of land out in the countryside, and they're old and they're beaten down by life, and they're still happy because they see the difference between how China used to be and how it is now. They have this sense of like collective achievement, right? They live relatively stress-free lives despite being in poverty because they can make all of their essential payments without any real stress, right? They don't have to worry about their economic. They may be poor, but they're economically secure, right? And Americans just aren't satisfied with that kind of thing. It's like, we got to be rich, right? I'm the same way. I'll be honest. It's like, well, economic security doesn't really fucking count for much if you can't live the way you want to live, right? And we're just not winning in this competition between nations. China objectively won the trade war, and the deficit confirms it. The increase of the price of the yuan confirms it. The infrastructure of China confirms it. China benefits from the Iran war, from what I can understand, right? Like they're not in any way suffering as a consequence of this stuff. The United States is. Xi Jinping is a competent leader, right? So people respect his authority, okay? They respect his basic competency for his position. People do not respect Donald Trump at all, not even his own cabinet. Marco Rubio, who's like his number two man, okay? He said in a debate previously, I watched this clip from their night. Marco Rubio, who's now like behind Trump in every fucking meeting that he goes to, said that if Trump didn't inherit his wealth, he'd be selling watches on Fifth Avenue. Right? So Marco Rubio, had crosswords to say. Ted Cruz had crosswords to say. I mean, the United States, it looks like a huge joke. And it is. It's in a really bad state. The leadership is not trustworthy. The leadership is not even effective, let alone trustworthy. Economics not doing well. SpaceX is a giant scam, basically. I mean, scam is not a legal definition. Scam is a subjective colloquialism. So anything can really be a scam. It's about the vibes. It's like, does this seem scammy? Yeah, it does. Every time the stock goes up $1, he gains $1 billion. Something like, or I think it's like $4 billion actually. Every $1 in stock price action on SpaceX moves Elon Musk's net worth by $4 billion. Right? They tried to cut all these special rules to get it into the S&P, so that institutional investors would be forced to index it and invest in it. They cut all sorts of agreements that I think they disallowed IPO investors from selling their shares. So they had some sort of agreement where they required that people lock their shares. I think the IPO price was like 135 or something like that. And then they topped it out at like 214. I haven't been paying too close of attention to it. And then it crashed off of that peak. And ultimately, they don't have any product. They bought Cursor, which is an IDE, which ostensibly doesn't have any value. I don't understand. Like China is selling like tungsten. China is selling, metals by the, just like the ton or whatever it is that they use as measurements. So you buy your raw metal from China to develop products, right? You want to sell a product in the United States, first you go to China and you purchase the materials to create it. And you might even contract Chinese labor to create your product for you. If, what is America selling? America is selling an IDE, an integrated development environment. That's basically like selling word processor. Okay. So Cursor, if you don't know, just give a brief overview. It is a code terminal where you can write software applications and you can use AI agents to assist in writing the code. He bought it for $60 billion. $60 billion. Any functionality of Cursor can be replicated for free using a different IDE. Okay? So Originally Cursor would allow you to bring your own API key for any AI model. You could just say you have a subscription to Claude, or you have a subscription to Gemini or DeepSeek or whatever it is that you use. Okay. And you could just bring your own key, and then it would route the requests to the appropriate company, and you would be able to work within the editor to edit your code. Now, Cursor requires you to pay a subscription fee to be able to do that. And why would you pay a subscription fee whenever there are a dozen other code editors that you could use that will allow you to do the exact same thing? And he paid $60 billion for that. And, everything they're doing, they're like folding, it's like, what, you can't fold a piece of paper more than like 50 times. I don't know what the actual number is. Like after 10 times folding a piece of paper, it's impossible. That's kind of what they're doing with the economy. So like SpaceX has servers. They have some rockets, so they have AI data servers, the computers that process requests. That holds value, but it's very limited value. It's actually not that valuable. And with Moore's law still remaining true, within 2 to 3 years, okay, probably 5 years tops, all of those servers are going to be outdated, right? We could see substantial jumps in terms of performance, application-specific chips for AI that are going to blow this stuff out of the water. And at that point, you could be looking at, look back to, let's pick like 2016, okay, like 10 years ago, 2016. If you bought a graphics card back then, okay, it could not do. I think back then, like a 1080, like a 1080 graphics card was like the peak. Okay, we're now at like 5090, and in terms of like their compute power, I think that they were several generations behind on video RAM. So that I think they were running like GDDR5 or 6 or something. I think we're on like GDDR7, if not like 8 or 9 by now. I don't know. So, and they probably had like 8 gigs of integrated graphic memory, maybe like 12 tops. Now they have cards that have like 32 gigs of integrated memory. It's of a much higher generation. Everything about the computation is different. Ray tracing didn't exist in 2016. Neural compute, as they call it, they're creating these neural computation networks. That's what Apple Silicon is doing. They have the neural compute framework, which I honestly don't know enough about to talk about. And then go back 10 years before that and look at how the graphics industry was. It was just, the graphics cards were pitiful compared to what they have now. So it's a very short lifespan for a company which has to make so much money to just break even. Okay. They've invested, the largest segment of their portfolio is rapidly depreciating computer hardware. Rapidly depreciating computer hardware, which must rent out its compute cycles to people via AI chat subscriptions, when the majority of those people do not need anything more than like a small model, right? So your average person using an LLM could use something like Gemma 4. Gemma 4 is a very low demand model. You can run it on a laptop, you can run it on a smartphone, okay? And most people would have absolutely no difference in their experience in their use of the LLM as compared to paying for the most premium tier of whatever else these companies are offering. Okay. Like if you're doing large code requests, you might want to pay for the advanced models. But even then, okay, like it's still just not economical. Companies are seeing that paying token prices is just not economical in general. I guess I'll conclude the rant there as far as that's concerned. AI and SpaceX do not present the same kind of value as a grassroots manufacturing industry like China has. Okay. There's a huge difference between selling the idea of going to Mars and rapidly depreciating computer hardware and, you know, like whatever you call Cursor, like an IDE, okay? Like it's software, right? Software that has tons of alternatives. That is like the height of the American economy right now. Yeah, arguably, it's like the most valuable company. Yeah. So, what do you think is going to have a better fate over the next 20 years? Somebody selling you vaporware and the idea of going to Mars, or somebody selling you raw materials, metals, rare earths, as they say. China just seems to be better positioned. And all of these doom and gloom videos, they seem like propaganda. Winston Sterzel, Serpents at A, China Fact Chasers, whatever they call themselves. They have like a million channel. ADV China, Laowai 86. They used to say, "Oh, we're not paid by the CIA. We're not CIA agents," because he's wearing a suit everywhere he went, stuff like this. Now I kind of have to question. Like all they do is criticize China, and they haven't said a single negative thing about the United States, right? They're singularly obsessed with China, and I don't doubt for a second that there are a lot of problems in Chinese society. Okay, but when you compare it to the problems in American society, I mean, it just doesn't look that bad. When you just think about things in terms of like, what do you think the future projection is? If everything remains the same, okay, and nothing changes over the next 20 years, the US dollar will continue to decline precipitously, and the Chinese yuan will continue to increase in value. Chinese society, Chinese standard of living will continue to increase. America doesn't seem to have any game plan. They don't have any plan of action. They're going around like chickens with their heads cut off, talking about bringing down prices and stabilizing housing prices and stuff like this, the cost of living and whatever else. It's not a crisis of cost. It's a crisis of earnings. The average American can't earn enough. If housing prices decreased by 20%, nobody could afford housing still because they don't earn enough. Okay? Like they're fundamentally missing the problem. The problem isn't that house prices are too expensive. It's that citizens don't earn enough income to ever afford them, even if they were 20% off. So yeah, I'm just kind of in my mood about this, as you can tell. We're just talking a bunch, and we don't have any sort of person to talk about this with. This is not a conversation; it is a monologue. And can we also acknowledge the ads industry? Okay, ads industry is largely fraud. It's just the entertainment industry. Entertainment and ads are a huge percentage of the American economy. It's a ridiculous amount of people, and they don't ultimately really produce anything. So it's pretty stupid. They advertise stuff to you when you don't have money to purchase it. I scroll YouTube on my phone without premium, and all I'm doing is making money for YouTube. They serve me all sorts of irrelevant ads. And what's the point? Where's the value add? They monetize spam. It's a total grift. America has griftonomics. In China, everything is very practical. It's like, they're selling real material. They're selling real goods. They're selling real. In America, it's all about bump up the price, sell it to somebody else. We're not in a good state. And I don't see it turning around because Gen X education, by and large, is not very good. Gen X is, I don't know, we have a huge percentage of the country that are like alcoholics or alcohol adjacent. Alcohol use disorder. Anybody that uses alcohol is considered like having a disorder at this point, right? Because alcohol is just so damn damaging. It disrupts your sleep. It affects every cell in your body, right? Alcohol is terrible for every organ in your body, including your brain. So, just lazy, pacified people in a country that's not really going in a good direction. There's tons of criminality and murder, just like people killing their families, people burning down warehouses. That's how the United States looks. So what if China is not good at football? Like, who really fucking cares, man? Like, sports is kind of stupid. Like, yeah, they invested quite a bit of money to try to get Chinese people to be good at soccer, and they're not really great at soccer. But at the end of the day, who really cares? The thing that matters is, what is your city? How are your cities? What do they look like? How, what is people's income to expense ratio? How strong is your national economy? Are there sufficient resources available for production? Do you have like production set up? And this stuff is just, it's dumb, stupid. Here, China's copy of Dubai collapses. 25 billion Palm Island project abandoned and left completely empty. Oh no. Wow, I guess I was wrong about China with their $1.2 trillion trade surplus. They wasted less than 10% of it on a giant mega city that could become inhabited at any point in the future whenever there's an audience that want to be there, right? So they have room to expand. They have like cities. If this was built in America, can you imagine what Trump would say? Can you imagine how the United States would react if somebody built a copy of Dubai? Okay, people on Fox News would be like, "This is why America is the best country on the. This is the most incredible city ever produced. It shows that America can still do great things." And blah da 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 da. This is just a rounding error to China, right? This is the rounding error. So ghost cities. They often use ghost cities as a way to be like, China is a paper tiger. They have ghost cities. Okay, sure. If that's how you want to interpret it. I mean, I don't see it that way. I think that's a pretty stupid thing to say. If at any point in the future, say it's like 30 or 40 years from now, people come through, they do a little bit of renovating. They need a population easement for a particular area. They have a large influx of foreign visitors. They have some sort of new project in the area or something, whatever it is. They can come through and they can develop it up again, and it's great. Wouldn't it be incredible if the United States had giant metropolises that were just empty because we built too many of them. Like, think about how stupid that is to claim that ghost cities are a sign that China is not doing well. It's like, oh yeah, they're not doing too good. They built like 10 extra cities. Yeah, these huge cities, lots of apartments, nice infrastructure, and just there's nobody there. They're all in those other cities instead, I mean, it's just retarded. I mean, come on, get real, dude. China has built so many cities, they've built so much architecture that they don't even have the capacity to use it all. The United States has built nothing, and I mean literally nothing my entire life. I think the only things they fucking built are like for-profit football stadiums. It's like they built like arenas for concerts and football and stuff like that. They haven't done anything like this. All that kind of activity stopped in like the 80s. I think in the 80s they were building lots of malls and things like this, but they pretty much all stopped on a dime. In my lifetime, they just simply have not built stuff like this in the United States. So you're telling me, I'm supposed to believe that China is doing badly because if I went there, I would be able to rent this apartment for 500 to 600 yuan a month. Okay, so let's take the expensive number. That'd be 600 yuan. That'd be $90 a month to live in this apartment. Hey, you're telling me that's a sign that China is doing bad. I could go live in an area where like it has like a less than 10% occupancy rate, where I get an apartment that's as nice as this and spend $90 a month. And that's supposed to be a sign of China's collapse. I mean, the propaganda is just pathetic. Imagine if that sort of shit existed in the United States. Okay, people would be killing each other to get the opportunity to rent this at $90 a month. Okay, I mean, people would literally murder other people for the opportunity to rent this apartment for $90 in the United States. Absolutely. Trump wants to build a fucking golden arch in DC. Like what is the United States doing? Like, I mean, come on, man. Let's give a fair shot. Top U.S. architectural achievements of the past decade. Search that. National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. Wow. Richard Gilder Center for Science, Education, and Innovation. Portland Institution, Airport Main Terminal. Okay. I'll check it out. Let's check it out. It's an airport, which I feel like airports are kind of like cheating. You know what I mean? Like, looks stupid. Okay. Yeah, here we are. Airport terminal. It's basically like China. China, every airport terminal looks like this. Very tall ceiling, with a wooden aesthetic. It's not bad, but it's like it's just not anywhere near to the scale as China's is. I mean, that's just the truth of it. There's one of these. How many of these kind of things are there in China? Every airport is like this in China, right? Like, China doesn't have airports that don't look like this. The best that the United States has to offer is the baseline for China in terms of airport architecture, for sure. Thornview campus. Thorn Bay View campus. You see, it doesn't even come up. It's not like.
Yo, it's John Bellion. Tune into my full live concert from Forest Hills on YouTube, your one-stop shop for music.
What am I supposed to be looking? And my immediate thinking is just like, I don't want to die going to some place like this, right? Like, I wouldn't feel safe in a place like this. I don't think that, generally speaking, America is just a dangerous place. Like, we have a really bad quality of citizenry, and my implicit bias says that if you're going to a university in California, there's going to be all sorts of just like, I don't know, people who are just completely off of it. You know what I mean? So if you can easily imagine, like,
In New York City,
today
a
at
new wing of
California
the American Museum of
University,
Natural History officially
you see,
opened to
you
the
see the news
public in early
headline:
May.
incident at California University. Maybe we should try that. I'll go back and find the actual name. Wow, this is an utterly, I mean, like, it's not a bad building, but it's also not. If you're saying this, I Google what is the top U.S. architectural achievements of the past decade, and that's what they show me, right? Now let's do China. Can't spell achievements. Feel like being on stream, my spelling and attention to detail has gone down a lot. Anyways, okay, let's compare their airport, their top airport, to our top airport. Dude, fucking load.
billion US dollars airport construction project was proposed back in 2008. Construction started in 2014 to build the 700,000 square metre airport terminal, the largest single building airport terminal anywhere in the world, that sits on a plot of land that takes up just under 50 square kilometres. And through the same doors. And so it just makes it a little bit easier, I think, to get in and out of the airport. After spending a little bit more time exploring the airport and looking at the airport diagram in a little bit more detail, I actually realised that the split levels in this airport aren't simply divided into international.
The American airport's not bad, but yeah,
to manage the whole process themselves. The security to the immigration sector.
And every Chinese airport looks like this to some capacity, right? Like, just a little bit better. Okay, so let's go California State University, Monterey Bay. Let's say like incident. Taser incident fallout. Statue vandalized. Protest over racial graffiti 2 months ago. Man found guilty of murdering former CSU Monterey Bay student. CSU Monterey Bay investigates racist graffiti. Blah, blah, blah. Housing crisis. Cyber attack. Human remains. Carjacking. Let's just look at like Monterey Bay, California incident. Get away from the college. Shark attack in Monterey Bay. Small plane crash in Monterey Bay. Okay, that's that. Oppo headquarters. Looks like a massive building. All right, well, we have no viewers, no chat, and the United States is traitor to its citizenry and terrorist to the world. How unfortunate that that is the case, but it is. So if you manage to find this and watch it, leave me a comment, subscribe, write me a letter, send me your credit card number. All right, see ya. Never, because there's nobody here. Thanks for nothing, United States.